Good morning, everyone. Decided to make a little video of a building I knew as well as the inside of my own house, as you can see there. And going to take all this apart soon because really no room for it. Now I built it just to kind of give an indication of some layman's indication of the internal layout of the power station and what may have happened as it fell down. The official report could be years away yet, and even if there isn't any kind of spin or bias which can creep into them, it's usually written in such unintelligible legalese that it's to be basically unreadable by the average lay person anyway. So decided to make something, a video that people might understand, help understand in sensible, no nonsense, everyday language, and explain some of the science that went on behind how that remarkable building worked and what went so sadly wrong that day. Didcot Power Station. It was 4 huge boiler frames wrapped up in a building. The roof of the building would have been about there, and incidentally when they demolished it they knocked these back 2 legs out. This is the bit that was still standing that they blew up properly, and this massive top frame swung down at the back, and from where we were standing we saw the boiler actually push through the front. The boiler isn't on this, it's not shown, it's not built into the model. We saw the boilers push through the front of the building and a whole lot fall over, and that was the controlled demolition. It should have worked properly. This is one of the 2 boiler frames left standing. As you can see by the green, I don't know if you can see the green square. This is unit 3, that bit, and this is what's left of unit 2, and which is I've just noticed there's a strut missing. Let's put that back on there, and that's what's left of unit 2. This here is what is a basic model of what you were looking at when you saw the end of the building where it had broken off. Obviously, due to the limitations of the construction system, it's not a perfect replica, but it gives the general idea. And just for the record, in there, that little box represents the workshop I spent 10 years in, and it was just behind the broken end off of the building because it was in the middle. Not full of floors like a conventional multi-story building, but had these really big levels. It consisted of areas, and you can see there, that's the winching well they used to have to winch stuff up in, and simple handrails that fended everything off, and the floors were see-through gratings. So if you're high up and you walked, when you walked at any speed, the gratings disappear under your feet because they're moving too fast. It would look like you're walking through the air. Quite a strange feeling. Now, introduce you to the construction system. Need to explain a bit of basic science about steel and construction and science and engineering. Try and break it down into something sensible. Here's a piece of steel, basically building steel. I use loads of this stuff at work because it's so easy to put together and chop with a special cutter. Now, it's a small bit, and therefore it's very hard. Steel feels very hard because when you put your hands on it, it's you basically have your hands on a small bit, or when you ever put your hand on anything made of steel, it feels hard and rigid. But actually, when you're talking about really big structures, the forces involved are so large that steel no longer becomes absolutely rigid and hard, and actually becomes surprisingly flexible. Have you ever noticed them lifting a beam off the back of a lorry? You know, you ever seen a beam on the back of a truck or rested across anything? You see how it curves? You see that beam there is curved slightly. And again, here's a metal plate, and you see again it's curved because of the weight. It's flexible, it flexes. You ever seen a girder or anything on a crane being lifted, or railway, lengths of railway line lifted off a wagon as it's hanging from the crane? You see it flexing and bending because on the large scale steel is actually quite flexible. Now, introducing to the construction system, it's German made, German designed, and used amongst other things to in German schools to educate their students about how structures behave, and therefore this plastic is designed to represent on the small scale how steel behaves on the big scale. Now, the reason why structures feel more stress as they get bigger and bigger is because of something called the square cube law. Now, if I have a structure and then I double its size, so here's a structure, that's your structure. Now, if I double its size, its strength goes up by its size multiplied by the square. So the size, you double the size, so double the size multiplied by itself, it's 4 times as strong. It's got 4 times as strong even though it's twice as big, because you can see the pillar's got 4 times the surface area.